Hello, everybody, and welcome to a little series I'd like to start doing whenever the moment really strikes and I guess inspiration strikes to talk about decks that I have played. Preferably, I'd like to focus on decks that other people have made, although I can already think of a couple decks that I think I have made that I'd like to talk about, but really to just highlight in a way that, is maybe a little bit more approachable because I'm pulling these decks from Marvel CDB, and while there are some fantastic write-ups, I also understand that, one, people might not necessarily want to go that route. I do know that, there is a crowd that loves articles, there's a crowd that loves videos, and some of them overlap, some of them don't, but either way, to just put a highlight on them, say, hey, here's my experience with this deck, because I'm not going to pick decks that, with my new hero guides are generally the kind where I'm looking for a deck that's a good example of where you could go with cards that I think are probably synergized with that hero. This is more of I played with this deck, here's my experience, here's the plus and minuses of them. Generally, I feel like it's going to be mostly positive because if I really crash and burn, especially if I've only got a case study of one or two games, that could be completely on me, and that the purpose of the deck just wasn't completely solidified from the designer's perspective. But this is a deck by the Daring Lime. And I apologize, I'll put the name up on screen, or I'll even put a picture up on screen of the entire deck list, but I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head. I want to say, was this the Kick-Ass deck? That might be it. This is a deck that I played at a meetup over the weekend, and I was really impressed with. I'll say that took it up against Expert Juggernaut twice, where the Tom Cassidy stuff was taken out for the Celestial Weapons. That was a pain, and that was a 4-player game. I'm not even going to say that it was this deck's fault, but Juggernaut just hit so hard that we just got overwhelmed in pretty quick succession twice. But then I did take this up against Expert Claw, and I should also side note, I have just described the 3 games of Expert I have ever played. I am not an Expert player. I do not necessarily love that. I like the more easy breezy. But the thing is that if I'm in a group of 4 and 3 people want to play Expert, I know that I can hold my own enough in most cases to do that. I'm just not somebody who's going to choose to do that on the regular. I don't feel like I'm good enough in a solo perspective. And I do think that solo is a harder version of the game in many respects, because you have to just be an all-rounder. But either way, that's getting besides the point. This is a Jean Grey deck that I think did really well. In fact, in my Claw game, she was in hero form from turn 1 all the way until I think the game went for 9 turns, because it started on me, we went around the table twice, and the last turn was on me. So I believe that would be 9 turns. She was in Phoenix form for 8 of those turns straight. She never went down to Ultra Ego. I never needed to bother, and I want to really put that up to the fact that this deck was so stellar and so well designed that while I think somebody probably blocked for me once or twice just when I was kind of in a little bit of a back foot position, and actually there was one point when I made a decision that I think I should have done differently. But let's go over the cards in this deck, and then I'll also highlight the cards from her kit that really did a lot of work in that particular game. And that's going to be the game that I'm going to frame a lot of this around, because it was actually a fully formed game that was complete and not one that was finished in 3 turns. But let's get into it. Let's talk about the allies real quick and why I think that there's a lot of genius going on here. So, allies, I'm not even sure if I'll be able to fit all of them on here, but we'll try. And since this isn't a new player guide, I'm not going to worry as much about getting the full extent of the cards onto the screen. But we've got what I think is important here the most is a lot of their stats, or how their stats can be perceived. So we've got Professor X, who's got 3 thwart. We've got M, who I will say probably does have her actual card text is going to be important, so we'll get around to her. But she does have a 3 attack. Miles Morales can have a 3 or a 4 in his stat. Power Man can be very powerful. Goliath can be up to a 5 in attack, and Nick Fury is Nick Fury. So why these allies are all important is that they can have a very high stat in one of their stats, and that's something that we're going to exploit over the course of this deck. Now, the cards that actually came into effect for me while I was playing, I can totally see the effects of Goliath. In fact, in a deck that utilizes something like You've Got This, Goliath can be very, very good. I've done that with Thor, and I think I got one good attack with Power Man where I took both the cheat counters off of him. You do that, he gets +2 attack for each cheat counter discarded, which then makes 2 consequential damage for an attack of 4, which is pretty good. But then, I don't even know if I ever actually played Professor X, and that's not because I didn't want to. I just think that my other options were just more potent. But then we get down to Miles Morales and M. And Miles Morales I don't know that he was a key component, but if I remember correctly, he was very helpful in the fact that I was able to drop him, bump up his thwart, and use that higher level thwart, that accelerated thwart, whatever you want to call it, to my advantage. M, super great here because when we were growing up, I mean, it was a clean, what you would expect of expert, claw. All the components were the same, but just expert. And M was helpful because she was able to get rid of the smaller minions that were attacking the other players. The only one that we kind of kept in play was there was it's not the guard minion. There's a minion in the claw scenario. It just has like one attack, and so the Spider-Ham character wanted to keep them around because it was just giving them a free tune counter every turn. M was coming down. She was just defeating minions. I think she even might have taken out a few of the Masters of Evil just because they had taken some damage, and so she had more health than they did and was able to just take them out. But the important thing here is to just realize that all these allies just have a higher than average stat somewhere. I mean, other than Nick Fury, but Nick Fury does so much for you. But that's what's important here about these allies, is that they have a accelerated or a higher than average stat somewhere, or the capacity for it. Now, what we're going to do is we have 3 copies of Last Stand, 3 copies of Psychic Kicker, and actually that is the like stat bump, isn't it? Okay, so actually, and that's fine. These are great. What we do then is since Phoenix is obviously psionic, we can use Psychic Kicker and Last Stand to. I should get these somewhere where you can read them, because I assume you all might not be as familiar with these cards as like the allies, because the allies are actually, other than maybe like Power Man, are pretty universally used. We use Psychic Kicker to ready an ally and give them a boost of +2 to thwart, +2 to attack for their next action this phase. Now this is helpful because I guess in the context of the game, I ended up using Mind Control, which can grab a non-elite minion and turn it into an ally. And I did that to Tiger Shark, who coincidentally is not elite, and was able to basically just have a 3 attacker with 7 health for the entire extent of the game. In fact, we had the, Rend Medical Aid, the protection side scheme that heals up 5 damage. So Tiger Shark had taken like 4 of his 7 damage, and then we just healed it all off of him, and he was able to just continue to sit there. Psychic Kicker is great because, well, obviously you can take these higher than average stats and bump them up even further. You get an extra activation. It costs 0, and in fact, because it's psionic, you can also get a use out of Scimitar. Which, well, I should keep it on. So a upgrade that when you play a psionic card, you can exhaust this to deal 2 damage. So you get extra damage through. And then Last Stand is used when you're done using that ally, you just want to have them go away. This was super helpful because, as we'll get into, it wouldn't be super helpful with Last Stand. I'm trying to think if there is a combo with Last Stand that's not just what we've already talked about. I don't think there is. But besides the point, with Last Stand, you're able to just basically, let's take M for an example. You're able to attack for 3, maybe attack for 5, and then end by attacking for another 6. And this small suite of 6 cards was so effective. It made it so that we're getting through the like 80 health that Claw had, and I was taking out like a chunk of 20 on a couple turns and just like speeding the process up. Besides that, there's also the make the call, which I believe I only used to bring back M, if I remember correctly, in my game. Even then, like looking around the table saying, is there any other allies? We could have just basically used the combo that we've discussed as such so far, to basically just rebuy something. But then we've got Rapid Response, which again is probably a card that a lot of people are aware of, but this was so helpful to bring back M. Have her go down, come back, defeat a minion with 2 hit points, which in that scenario, there's enough small minions to be able to do that. Additionally, one of the cards I brought back was Cyclops. So the effect that happened here was that I had, I think it was 2, maybe 1 power counter left on the Phoenix Force. It flipped over. Suddenly I am unleashed. Cyclops goes away, comes back, and now I've got 2 counters on there so that while I'm in unleashed form, I can still use Phoenix Force, or I can still use the Phoenix ability to generate a wild resource. Small combo, not like the most important thing. And in fact, Cyclops is probably an ally that I wouldn't use a lot of the kind of cards we talked about, the Psychic Kicker or the Last Stand on too much. But at the same time, he is a character that you kind of want coming in and out of play. So that was super helpful. Rapid Response, going through my deck, I think I went through my deck twice, so I got to see Rapid Response on a pretty regular basis. I think I only used Make the Call once or twice, but still, this recursion engine is really helpful, especially when you just want to get back out someone like M or someone like Goliath, just to let them do what they're going to do. Then, keeping it super simple, we've got Make the Call for backup and Build Support. In fact, I think Build Support in Daring Lime's deck, I think it is the Superpower Training, but it's just Superpower Training was in the other deck that I brought that day, so I just substituted it with Build Support, because while it's less helpful in this deck, there's far more you'd want to do with a Superpower Training. I was like, you know what, we'll keep the same amount of player side schemes in the deck. We'll just hope and pray that this doesn't interrupt the deck too much. Call for backup is great just because you can go and find the ally you need at that point. It's something like super helpful where you can just go and say, hey, I'm going to grab M, which means we're going to get rid of this minion and we don't need even to worry about them. Just keep them in a nice place. Additionally, I will say that while it was somebody else's deck, somebody else was able to get out the side scheme, the Show of Empathy, to do Redemption so that we could take control of another Master of Evil. So we were in fine shape that day. Then, pretty basic, we've got the XJet, which I don't think came out in the Claw game, but definitely was helpful in other games. 3 copies of the Power of the Mind, because we do have, just in Phoenix's kit alone, plenty of psionic cards. The basic stuff, and then Scimitar is all the new additions or the aspect cards for the deck. Pretty basic. And then finally, let's just see here. Were there any other cards? I mean, Mind Control did a lot of good work. Cyclops did a lot of good work. Beyond that, I'm trying to think if there were anything else from her kit that like really stood out for this deck. Oh, I suppose at one point I put Telekinetic Shield onto Cyclops. So I put him down, had to make a basic attack, so he took consequential damage, then put Telekinetic Shield on him, which made it so that he was able to block for me for, I think it was like 2 or 3 attacks. Like, he just got super lucky. We didn't hit that 5 damage threshold until he'd already defended for me a few times, which just added to the longevity. And I think that putting Telekinetic Shield onto an ally that you don't intend to use the Psychic Kicker Last Stand combo on, just to have a minion that can sit there and take a lot of damage. I suppose also if you put it onto your mind-controlled enemy, so someone like Tiger Shark, someone like a Sentinel, just suddenly has an extra amount of life because the damage they're taking from enemy attacks doesn't count towards their hit points. This is really cool. I mean, other than that, you're just looking at just Phoenix just doing Phoenix things. So like, yeah, just you're removing threat, you're dealing a bunch of damage. Like overall, I think that just the core of Phoenix is strong enough that when you add in these components to make this really strong leadership deck, it is something noteworthy and something pretty great. And so, yeah, I will put a link to this deck list in the description. And yeah, we will continue to do this every once in a while. This will just be a short little video that comes out, on the regular. But until the next one, thank you for your time and have a great day.